Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to episode number 69 of the White Knuckle Podcast, powered by Ozonics. Undetectable, undeniable. Well, hey, everybody, welcome back to the White Knuckle Podcast. Tonight, we are continuing on our series with public land hunting. I am joined on the other line, all the way out, assumably in North Dakota, Lucas Cayko. How's it going, Lucas?
Oh, it's going great, buddy. How's it going down in the great state of Wisconsin?
It's going good. The river's finally down, so you can catch some walleyes and some smallies, and that's a good thing. So it was up all spring or winter or whatever you want to call whatever it was that we had here. But what's new in your world, man? It's been a long time since we talked. Lucas used to be for any of you who lived under a rock, he was on the White Knuckle team for a number of years, been a public land hunter pretty much all your life, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I just grew up hunting the river bottoms here in northwest North Dakota.
Is it fair to say that most people in that area, is that the way they hunt, or is there a lot of permission kind of hunting or leasing or whatever?
It's a pretty good mixture of private and public, but the public ground over here is got a lot of traction lately and attention in the last few years. So it's kind of a get on the boat, hit the river, and put in the work to get to the spots a lot most people aren't hitting. And as soon as you get to the places people aren't hitting, you're running into deer, and a lot of times one of the big bucks.
Right. So you're like everybody else, basically, that I guess has a whole lot of skin in the game in terms of public hunting, and that's you go deep often, right? Yeah.
For the most part, I will. It all depends, though. What time of the year. If it's earlier, I want to work the edges and work my way around some observation spots where I can see a long ways. If I get a chance to get out, I generally don't even like to go out too much in September anymore with the way the mosquitoes have been the last few years. And this year's looking like it's going to be even worse. The river, you mentioned the river down there going down, and then people catching a lot of fish. And I believe the fish thing because my buddy Jake Gill has been sending me Snapchats all freaking week. Him and a group were catching fish somewhere, but they were just hammering the walleye somewhere. So I believe in that one. But our river here in the Missouri, where the Yellowstone and the Little Missouri meet, and it creates the Big Missouri River, we're catching a lot of runoff from the mountains right now, and this thing is just flooding like crazy. And I haven't done anything as far as like deer, anything to do with deer right now, because everything, all the woods that I'd normally hunt are underwater, and the deer are pretty much out of the valley and up in the hills. Okay. So, I mean, they have to be, because it's actually ridiculous, and you come down into the valley, and you can kind of see all the water in the valley, and you're just like, wow, these deer have got to be just, scattered everywhere right now. So I'm kind of getting pushed back on doing any kind of scouting or, preparation right now, because this river is just so damn high, and I don't think it's supposed to go down for a while yet. So fun over here. It's
really been an abnormal weather year, and it'll be interesting to say the least to see how it turns out here this fall. I think last year we all got lucky. I don't know if you did out there, but we had just an absolutely flawless weather pattern for, I would say, the majority of the end of October and the start of November. Speaking of last year, let's hold off on the public land conversation. How did you end up doing last year?
I mean, as far as just getting on deer and having a lot of luck. I mean, I had probably one of the best years of my life last year. I didn't kill the biggest buck of my life by any means, but I shot a really good buck on public land with my buddy, My buddy came up from Minnesota, and he hunts with me every year now. He comes up, he makes a trip, a little Friday to Monday type trip.
Sure.
And we hunt for 4 days, and it's usually in the rut. So he came up one year just to give it a try because I've been telling him forever. And finally he came up, and I said, you got to come up here, and I got to rattle in some bucks for you. You can come hunting with me and my dad. And he came up one year, and we had bucks all over us. I mean, he's seen things he never thought were even possible, and so he's hooked. He's got a spot. he's got his bed made here at the house for forever now. So he came up again this year, and we had a perfect hunt end of October, and it snowed the night. We got pretty much our first snow of the year, end of October, and it came overnight. Well, I got the boat all prepped up, and it'd be the first trip on the river bow hunting that fall. And we went to put in, and it was coming down really good. It was snowing, so it's 3:30 in the morning, and we're backing this boat into the river. And my buddy Matthew, he's never done that before. He's never went on the river in the dark, and especially this river. He doesn't live around here, so
sure.
We're backing the boat in, and he's like, is this going to be one of those things where somebody's reading in the paper a few days from now, or 2 dudes went missing? And I was like, no, don't worry. This is nothing. Like, I've done this a million times. I could do this in my sleep, but it just was a little bit weird, as snow is just lightly falling, and you're putting in this boat, into the water, and it's a big river. So it's a little sketchy, I understand that, so we got in, we cruised up the river, and we got on bank, and I had him set up a little closer to the riverbank, and we were kind of in a pinch point. The deer were coming out of the fields. They were sugar beet fields, and they got to come down into some bigger timber, and that makes kind of a horseshoe shape. Uh-huh. Kind of comes down to the river, and there's backup water that comes in on a channel that goes right through them big woods that they come off from the fields. And so that backup channel fills up a bunch of water, and so it creates a pinch point where these deer got to go in between that water and the river. And so we just basically cut that pinch point. It's about 150 yards wide, probably 200 yards wide. And so we just I knew that was from history, that's a damn good spot to be, especially end of October when bucks are starting to, ramp up and get into that mode,
Right on.
So I was like, we're gonna get in there and get set up on this pinch point, and so he set up closer to the river. He was about 80 to 100 yards off the riverbank, and then I went up the other, 70 yards. I don't even think I was that far from him. But he sat on the ground. We got him all brushed in really quick, and then I went and climbed up and set my lone wolf stand up. And it wasn't even breaking light, and there's some deer starting to moving through, and I could hear something coming up ahead of us, and I actually thought they were heading towards him, but it got really quiet for a while, and I could see kind of down towards him, and I couldn't see him actually, but I could see down in front of him in kind of a little lane. And I'm like, them deer should have popped out by now. And it was kind of thick. So I just hit the grunt tube just to see if we could get them moving a little bit or doing something. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't even 5 minutes. And here comes a young 4x4. He comes walking right up to me. I mean, he ends up right below my platform. I was only like 10 feet off the ground, so I wouldn't get silhouetted. And I looked back, and I knew that there was another deer back there because I could hear him, and I was like, oh, he's doing what a mature deer does. He's letting this little guy come in and probe the area and check things out, and then as soon as that buck, doesn't find anything wrong, he's going to come in. And sure enough, he came right through the thick stuff. The little guy, he came right through the easiest path to me, and I could see him the whole way. The bigger buck, he circled around, and I didn't see him till he was actually I didn't get a good look at him till he was probably 20 yards away. He was right there, and he basically come out on the edge of the thick stuff, and as soon as I seen him, I'm like, yep, that'll work. I made my mind up. He's going to go down, and he presented just the absolute perfect shot, and I reached up, kicked my GoPro on right as he was coming in, so I got everything on footage really, really good. It was one of my best filmed, self-filmed hunts I've had, and he turned, and I sunk one in there, and that was history. But part of the reason is I don't know, the older I get, the rack size is becoming less important, is more or less just about the hunt itself. And if I'm with somebody, or it's kind of the experience you get to share with somebody. So that buck, if I had been by myself, I may have not even shot it, but being I had my buddy with me, and I knew it was going to be a memory for him, it was going to be a memory for both of us, and this whole thing, it just felt right. When it feels right, pull the trigger. That's what I've always believed,
Absolutely.
And so it felt just perfect, and it was just a perfect hunt. It was lightly snowing. I mean, it was gorgeous. I mean, I can't really even think of another better, more perfect scenario of how we did the whole thing. And I shot him. He ran off. I watched him pile up. I get down from my tree, and I start walking over to my buddy, and I actually had a tough time finding him. He got brushed in a little bit too good. I was kind of looking for him, and I was like, where in the hell is this guy? Finally, he stood up, and he's waving at me, and I was like, oh, shit, I thought you were way over here. But he comes running over, and he's like, did you shoot one? I was like, yeah. He's like, he's dead, like right over here. He's like right in front of me. He's like, I heard this deer come crashing through the brush, and then it stopped, and then I could have swore I heard it tip over. And I was like, yeah, that was him. He was right out in front of me over there. He's like, holy shit, awesome, dude. And so it was just one of those things, it was just an awesome time. And it wasn't a couple days after that, I got him on a great buck on some public ground, and we were after a big deer, a really big deer, and we were actually kind of sneaking along a water side, and we were kind of had the wind coming down across the water on this backup water, and we were kind of sneaking to make a big circle to get in around and get the wind in our favor to hunt this deer, while we kicked this deer up out of a bed like 10 feet freaking off the cliff that goes off into this backup water. And I was like, oh, shit, there he was right there. He was right freaking there, and it was the perfect spot to bed, thinking back on it. He had the wind in his face, and he had the water to his backside. I mean, it was perfect scenario for him, and it was just trademark big buck bed, Right when that happened, I was like, that was perfect. Nice move. You're just like, that was nice. Got us.
Exactly.
And, so he ran off, but when he didn't really know what happened because he never seen us, he just kind of heard us. Mm-hmm. And we watched him run off, and he kind of went into this strip of timber, and we had another buddy out there with us that was going hunting with us, and he was like 300 yards from us, and I called him right away, and I said, hey, see if that big deer runs out across that field out there. And he's like, okay, hold on, yeah, he's looking, and for 20 minutes we sat there, and he's like, dude, that deer never came out. And I was like, well, he never came out back out this side. So we we surrounded this pocket of timber where he went into, and it wasn't very big. And me and my buddy, we belly crawled like 3 or 4 times up to these positions to get close enough to where we might see if he got up and goes a different direction, Mm-hmm. And we'd crawl up to a spot, and we just wouldn't like it. So we'd crawl back out because we were kind of on a little ridge. And if you would even been on your knees, you would have been completely exposed. If he was in there, he probably would have seen us. So we were crawling through the snow out there, and we'd get up to these bushes, and we'd kind of take a look, just a slight peek around, and it was like, nah, this ain't right. So we must have crawled 150 yards, 200 yards total, going in and out. We'd come back out, and then we'd get downside of that ridge, and then we'd go back up it again to see if we were getting, back where we wanted to get to where we wanted to be. Mm-hmm. And finally, it was just like getting later, and after we're crawling around, I have felt silly, my buddy, he's just like, are we going to make up our mind here? What are we going to do? It's getting late. And I was like, it just don't feel right. None of these spots feel right. And then I just happened to look over, and I seen this sagebrush. It's a really thick sagebrush bush, and it was like 8 feet tall. And I looked over at it, and I was like, I wonder if I could get up in that and, just not actually climb into it, but just stand up inside it myself and film from it, because I was just filming and calling for him. And so we crawled over to that, and then I got in there. I thought I was going to have him sit right with me. And we're sitting there, and I got set up in this tree, and I was in this bush, and my silhouette was gone, everything. I looked perfect. And I was like, I can see everything, dude. If he leaves and goes the other direction, we can see him. If he goes this way, I can see him. I can see everything. So we're sitting there, and I just had this idea. I just popped in my head. I was like, there's this little there's like a bowl out in front of me, about 10 yards in front of me. It just went down. It was like a bowl. And I was like, this deer is we're kind of sitting on a little ridge top, just a little tiny ridge. And the deer, so when they're walking towards us, they're going to kind of lose sight of us as they're coming up it, right?
Oh, sure. I get it. Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So when they get closer to the bottom of that ridge, they're going to lose sight of us, and then they're going to come over the top of it, and they're going to be right in front of us, like right there.
Sure.
That was I was envisioning. And so I like Matthew, go lay down in that little bowl. Just go lay there. I can see forever. If something's coming, I'll just signal to you to get up and get ready, and I'll point to which direction, and I'll be able to kind of just guide you through it. Well, he couldn't see shit from there, so he goes and lays down there. Pretty quick, he's just laying there. Here, I've zoomed right in on him because I knew he fell asleep. I'm looking at him. He fell asleep there because he's just like, he has nothing to do but lay there.
Sure.
And so pretty quick, he just popped his eyes open, and literally about that time, I see this deer coming right towards us. And I seen a rack, just a glimpse of it, and I was like, "Oh, dude, get up! There's a buck coming towards us."
Sure.
And we seen this big deer, so we're thinking, "Oh God, this hog is gonna come right to us." Well, it ended up not being him, but I at the time it looked like a freaking good solid buck, anyways. So I was like, "Dude, just get up! This deer's coming right to us, like fast." And I seen it at like 150 yards out was all, and he was pretty much on that cruise. He was looking for a doe. And so you can know how fast he was moving. He covered that ground in less than a minute easily.
Sure.
And so he's coming, and he starts to go right in front of that rise. And the film is freaking incredible. I got my buddy Matthew in the frame. That deer's walking straight at us. It kind of disappears for a second, and I'm telling him, like, he's right there, 30 yards. He's coming right up. He's going to come right over that. I'm just whispering to my buddy, and I pretty much just say, draw, because when he was coming up that ridge, I mean, he was going to be right in front of him. And that buck comes over the ridge, and finally he's seen him, and so my buddy's on him. He's got it drawn, but he's got some brush in his way. And that deer just kind of hesitates, like he kind of glances around when he comes over the ridge. He takes a few steps to his left, so it opened up his right side to my buddy, and he smacked him at like 10 yards off the ground. It was incredible.
Really?
It was one of the coolest hunts I've ever been a part. It was just, we both freaked out. He went running. He threw his bow. The deer just ran off, and he piled up. I mean, he smoked him through the heart. And so he ran off and piled up, and once we seen him kicking snow all over at like 90 yards away, we were just like, holy shit, that just happened? Like, that was incredible, dude. It was one of the most fun times I had this past year. But, it was just one hunt after another like that this year, man. I mean, went to Montana with some buddies from Wisconsin, and and my buddy, the buddy I went to school with my whole life. So there's four of us. We went to Montana. We shot some bucks with rifles over there. My wife shot a tank, a good buck with her
she did.
first
I saw that.
whitetail. My mom shot a giant. And
I remember that.
All these are on video, so I got to get all this shit put together and share it with everybody, because it was literally a season of a lifetime for me. And I shot a cow elk, a North Dakota cow elk.
Wow.
It's just to say it was incredible is an understatement. It was just too perfect. I mean, I was on a roll. Everybody I was with, everybody I was helping trying to get a deer, and it didn't matter, and it just, everything came together every single time, just as I envisioned it every damn time. It was just incredible, man.
Well, a lot of times it's just fun to be a part of that kind of stuff, and especially when the plan comes together.
I don't even, that was the craziest part, was like, everybody kept saying, like, they kept making fun of me and kind of joking, like, you got a horseshoe? What kind of a horseshoe you got up your ass this year, dude? They're like, holy cow, man. Like, anything I did, any idea I had, it just was working, man. It's in the zone,
Right.
So, strike while the iron is hot, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think one of the things that I took away from public land hunting this last year was kind of, you talked about it just a little bit, and that's, I don't know, your ability to kind of do or try things that you normally wouldn't try, at least for me. Just to you're not afraid to blow it. And that's one of the things that I asked Dan Infalt, I think it was, and I might have asked Aaron Warburton and Zach Van Bon, a few of the other guys that have done the show as well. and I'll ask you the same question. In order to be a successful hunter, just period, not just public land, but a successful hunter, do you have to learn to love the failure?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, that's because that's 99% of the game is failing in public land and in any hunting really. I mean, I've been on private land and I've hunted some great private land and I still failed 99% of the time, hunting that. Right. So I just think you got to be able to accept the fact that you're going to have way more almost hunts that seem like was a waste of time. But you got to think of those hunts as a waste of time being, all right, why didn't something go right? Why did something go wrong? And just figure out all the questions that, may have, caused that hunt to not go as planned, Right. And a lot of times it's just a big question mark. You'll go home, go to bed, and you'll go, I don't even know what the hell, that should have been a good hunt. And when that happens, I just chalk it up to somebody may have been there, somebody was probably there, somebody walked through there with a dog, anything. When somebody went scouting through there for their hunting vacation, which might be a week away or something, and they're scouting around for that. And I just think that if you can just be okay with it and try to just laugh at your failures, like that's my biggest thing is like if I go out of my way completely and, like I've drug a canoe on the ground, for a quarter mile just to put it in a channel and paddle another half mile. And then walk another quarter mile just to get to a tree to have somebody come in first light and walk around and shoot doves right in front of my tree stand. I've done that before, Right. And you just got to think about it as like, all right, so here's my morning. Here's what I did. I got up at 3:00 in the morning. I loaded the boat up, the canoe, everything. I got it all out here. I got in here perfect. I paddled all the way over here. I drug that damn canoe all over hell, and I got in here, and then this guy just, That's just how it goes in public ground. Yeah. Anything can happen out there. I've seen it all, man.
Life happened. You did this. You did this same series with us last year, and one of the things that you told me was exactly what you just were talking about. Don't go in with any preconceived notion. I think that's the best advice I'd gotten last year out of those podcasts that I did. It was. Yeah. Don't go in with any expectations. One expectation you should have is that people are going to happen. And it was opening day. I have, oh my gosh, I don't know how much money and time I spent in gas and miles on my truck just scouting around, and I wanted to stay close to home that morning, so it was opening morning, and I go to the local one of the local public hunting areas, and I purposely wanted to stay away from this bean field that I figured they'd be feeding in, and I figured I got myself in between bedding and the feed or the bean field, and I probably walked, I don't know, it was like a mile and a half probably back in there, and people are probably going to get sick of hearing this story, but you're not going to because you haven't heard it yet.
I don't care what anybody else thinks. I want to hear it.
Yeah, so I'm sitting there and I hear a twig snap, and I'm like, oh boy, that sounded a lot like a deer. And I'm like, could this be this easy? Oh my gosh. And all of a sudden I look over and I can see this small oak sapling just rocking back and forth. And I'm like, oh shit, this is going to happen. It's going to go down like this, man. I can't believe it. And yeah. I grab my binoculars and I put them up and I'm looking and trying to figure out what kind of a deer it is. And all of a sudden I'm like, well, that's purple. Something's purple. And here it's this gal with a purple purse. And she's walking with her husband, who's got a .22, and it's also the opening day of squirrel season. And, they were, I don't know why they were messing around by that tree, but anyway, they came walking, and of course, they picked the trail that is going to come right almost underneath me. And they're walking, and I'm filming it, and I'm like, why did she pick a purple purse? But it doesn't really matter. And I kept thinking, oh my gosh, this pisses me off so much. And then I thought about what you had said, to expect it. I'm like, they have just as much right to be out here as I do. Yeah. And then I thought, you know what? Good for them. I'm glad that they're out here, and they walked underneath me, and he turned and saw my my lone wolf sticks going up the tree, and he looked up, and I just said good morning, and they felt bad. I could tell they felt bad, but I said, hey, have a good hunt, and I said, I think up over there's a good oak ridge, and they went on their merry way, and I never saw a deer, and I still had a good time. I found that for me, and maybe you can speak to this just a little bit. It's one thing that no one has covered yet, is having a good system and knowing your equipment. How high would you place that on or what order of importance would you put that? Especially a guy like you who's going to go back in a couple miles. How much do you have to have a good setup? And when I say setup, I don't necessarily mean just your lone wolf and your sticks. I mean the whole system. How important is that to you?
Well, as little as possible is what I like,
right,
and simple as possible. Well, with camera gear and all that stuff, well, we can only do so much as to limit that.
Right.
But I try to keep it as light as possible, but my packs are always super heavy. I mean, I'm one of those guys, too, that just, I'd rather have it and not need it, and need it and not have it. I'm that type, and it's kind of, it kind of messes with me, though, and I carry some things around that probably don't actually have to have all the time, but they just end up in there, and then I don't empty my bag out through the season. I'm just pretty much, I got it put away, and it's ready to go, and it's always set, and it's always packed away the way I like it. So all I got to do is grab my stuff, and I'm on the road, and I'm going,
Yep.
And if I'm going on a longer trek in, I'll try to limit 3 sticks with my lone wolf sticks and my assault stand, and I always have the camera arm and everything like that, so that always adds that extra weight, and it's funny, like we talking about packs, because I got a buddy, my buddy Colin. He's been hunting a lot with me the last couple of years here, and he's literally like $150, if that, and like 5'6", 5'7", just a tiny little guy, and he gets such a kick out of our packs, because he never used to do that, and I got him into filming and all that stuff. So
sure.
Every time we're packing all of our stuff up, and and we're actually going, he's just always making jokes about, like, I am not a Sasquatch. Remember that, like, you are gigantic. I am tiny, and he's so like, we'll stop every now and then and let him rest a little bit, and I'm like, you ready, son? Just joke with him. You ready to go, son? Make fun of him. Oh shit, but yeah, we probably pack a little more than necessary, but
well,
I only pack things that, if I'm going to need them, I'd rather have them, that type of thing.
Well, I'll tell you what, especially in the country that you're in, which is vastly different than the country that I'm in. However, this year I hunted pretty rugged country in comparison with what I was used to, let's say, the last 20, 30 years before this. But you almost have to pack for a little bit of everything, especially like me. I was an hour and a half away from home a lot of the time. Like you said, you'd rather need it and not have it than, have it than and not need it than need it and not have it.
Right, so. Exactly. And one of those items is a trail camera or two,
Exactly.
Like I'll take 1 or 2 of them with me, because I'm like, if I get back there, I don't get back there all the time, but if I'm going to be back there and I'm going to be putting my scent in there, at that point, I might as well be doing some kind of scouting,
right.
for later on in the year. And so I may drop a camera here or there, I may not, but I have that option. And so that's just that's another couple pounds right there on your pack. So it gets kind of silly sometimes, and I destroyed my pack this past year. I mean, just from throwing all my crap on there and packing everything around. I got to just buy an absolute legit mountain pack is what I need. I had a Tenzing mountain pack, but it was like one of the first ones they brought out, and there was a few things on there that just would not handle that weight. They just wouldn't. They're just the way they were built. They just weren't handling it. And so I had tape all over it. I had, all these different straps all connected differently. And by the end of the season last year, it looked like an absolute wreck. So I'm in the market for a new pack. So if anybody out there wants a shout out to a new badass hunting pack that I could pack about 50, 60 pounds on regularly, give me a shout,
Yeah, I was at the ATA show this year, and I got to be honest and say I'd never heard of Mystery Ranch before. And David, David's like, "Oh man, you haven't heard of them?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "We got to check them out." And we went over, and lo and behold, they started to make a whitetail pack this year. They're really heavily invested in government contracts. I think they do a lot of stuff for the U.S. Forest Service, the U.S. Forest Fire Service.
Right on.
I think some special ops stuff for the military. But the one cool thing that they did with this new whitetail pack, and we're not in bed, so to speak, with them yet. We're still talking, and I'm sure that I'm confident we'll put something together eventually. But that stand actually will pack in a lone wolf and sticks on it. It's specially designed, not for a lone wolf necessarily, but it will do a lone wolf and sticks and carry a bunch of stuff. So that's where it's at right there. Those are pretty badass.
Like that would be.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of the Aaron Snyder's company out there in your world. Well, they're actually both out in your...
is it Kafaru?
Kafaru, yeah, Kafaru.
Yeah, something like that.
They I guess I can't say anything because I don't know for sure, but I would keep my I'd keep my ears on that as well.
Yeah. Well, you saying Mystery Ranch and then bringing up that one too. That's probably the sixth, seventh time somebody mentioned those two.
Yeah,
so,
I'm
definitely. I'd like to get my hands on them though. Like I'm a hands-on guy, so if I can find them where I can actually put them on my back, I can play with all the straps because I know now what types of things start going first. As far as where. Yeah. So if I can get them on my, and look them over, and I went into a Cabela's like a month and a half ago, and I swore that guy probably was like, this guy is the most anal person I've ever met in my life, because I went through every single one of the packs they had there. I had the zippers all doing this and that. I had him on. I was asking him all like a million questions, and he didn't know half the things I was wondering, either.
Right.
But I probably had him busy for like an hour and a half, just in the packs,
Well, you have
to. And so that's just the way I am,
Yeah, I mean, it's not a cheap date. None of those things.
Right, right.
But it's like, yesterday we talked, I think I mentioned earlier, maybe before we started recording, we talked with the Sitka gear people, and, their stuff isn't cheap either, but there's a reason it's not cheap. I can tell.
Right.
It's kind of like workout gear. You can tell when you put on a good pair of shorts or shoes or whatever the case may be, but you're always paying for that stuff. But anyway, I don't want to make it too much of a commercial, but yeah, definitely check out that Mystery Ranch. David
definitely will.
David's a gear guy, and he loved it. I've never put on a backpack before and had it properly adjusted by somebody who knew what the hell they were doing, first of all. And had it feel so comfortable. I in this process, this last fall, I lost like 18 pounds, just in this public land hunting. Well, my God, it was like straight up and down, no matter where I went. But,
well, that's good. That's good for you, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was. It was a good time. It was that much more rewarding, to get one. It was, and it really didn't.
Yeah.
After I shot it, you were saying earlier about, being in that moment, and I never even thought twice about what the size of the deer was. I knew it was a good rack, and I just went into kill mode at that point. But
yep, exactly.
We can talk about the past forever, but let me ask you a couple of questions here. What, in your opinion, what is the biggest mistake that a public land hunter makes, especially somebody that's just getting into it? Because I get a lot of emails from people that say, I'm going to try this. I hear everybody's trying it. And I'm like, great. But what's the biggest mistake you think that you've made that maybe you could tell us that would prevent us from making that mistake?
I think if you get I guess I'd have to say getting a little bit ahead of yourself as far as when you see a big deer, right?
Sure.
And it's on public ground, and the first thing you're thinking is like, how am I going to kill this deer? How do I kill him? How do I kill him? And I would say my mistakes that I'd made and I still make are not properly thinking through where he's living, who else is hunting the area, and actually properly figuring out the way to kill him before I actually moved in on him. So by doing that, I've actually went into a spot. You always have that idea. All I got to do is set up here, and then I'll kill him. But sometimes it's just not that easy. And a lot of times it's not that easy. And it may take just kind of probing that area for even if it's just another day or two, right, before you go jump right in the damn tree where you seen him, because them big bucks, I've noticed around here anyways, they don't come out on the same damn trail every time. They just don't. They might every now and again use the same trail back-to-back nights, but I've seen so many more times where they'll just come out 30 yards down, or 40 yards down. So I had a big deer pinpointed one time, and if I had just sat back and maybe just watched the general area of the field he wanted to use the most, I may have been able to actually kill this deer, because he ended up only using probably after this is what trail cameras told me after the fact. I went in there and the wind switched on me and he busted me. And so that was just because I got anxious, and I just was like, I got to get in there and kill him right now. Well, yeah, that might be true on public land where you got to get in there at times, but sometimes if you just got to go with a feel, and if you can get away with leaving him alone maybe a day or two to get a look at him, you might see that, okay, he comes out on this, right along this bush here. All right, I've seen him come out there. All right, now he came down, the wind was coming out of this direction, he came out right over here. Well, now he came out over here maybe, another night. Now, over here, you're probably pretty lucky this day and age to see a deer of a larger buck, mature deer coming out that many times in a row,
Mm-hmm. Right.
Now, this is back when there wasn't so much pressure around here where you could actually do that. But I screwed up on a lot of big bucks by doing just this problem right here. And so if I would have just laid back and was just like, all right, you come out here, here, and here, and he likes this little edge where when the sun would get down, the angle of the timber created a shady area along that whole stretch of the timber, and it was like 80 to 90 yards long, something like that. Well, he knew, he obviously knew that when he got into that shaded area and everybody was out towards the road, it was harder to see him when he was in that shade. So I'm pretty sure that's why he was coming out in that shaded area of the field. The sun wasn't down yet, but it was at an angle that it just created shade across that corner of the field. And so I figured that out later on, that if I would have just pinpointed that area that he was hunting, that he was coming out on, I could have set up, in that midway point and probably got a shot on him the first perfect wind I got on him. Instead I went in there when I had a kind of a tricky wind, and, I blew him out of there. And it just so happened to dawn on me one day. I was driving by there working, and it was coming by about that time of the night, and it was just that super dark shaded spot over there, and I was glassing, and I seen a deer over there, and I was like, I can hardly see that thing, and then it clicked, and I was like, that's why he was moving from that brush, that big clump. There was a big bush, a distinguished bush along the edge of the field, and then it was down to the corner of the field where the shade would go. And I was like, that's why he was using that whole stretch right there. And it just clicked on me, just like that. And so just one of those things where if you just kind of try to be a little patient if you can, but a lot of times I'm just going for it, man. Right. Anymore, I'm just like, these days you might have one chance to just get in there right before somebody comes that weekend and, or drives by or does something crazy, checking cameras. So it all depends on where you're at. If you can take your time at all. That's one thing, and really look at things from a broader perspective. And think about that shade thing. And so ever since I've seen that years ago, now I've always checked those shaded spots in the morning and the evenings. I really glass them up because I've seen so many big deer in those little shady spots of the fields. Because they know that's a spot that they can't be seen as easily. Because when you get out in the sunlight, they just stick out. Them
Sure.
big velvet racks and stuff like that. So that's one thing that I've been doing now since then. That's probably 8-9 years ago. I learned that one.
Do you think that I guess you just brought up a great point, and I don't think that you're ever going to read that in a magazine article as a tip. But do you think that sometimes we don't give the animal enough credit in terms of, I guess what I'm thinking is that we don't give them enough credit that they're out there just solely their main goal is to survive. And if you start thinking about it, start thinking about the animal from that perspective, whether it's an elk or a mule deer or a whitetail.
Right.
I mean, they're all a little different, but they're all quite the same in that they're just trying to survive. Do you find yourself, I guess, putting that into, I guess, using that thought process more than you did in the past as you've grown as a hunter?
Yeah, and when that first started, like becoming, when I started to become aware of that idea, was when I was shed hunting. Well, when I was shed hunting, like every single waking second that I had free years ago, when I'd pick up, anywhere from 70 to 100 sheds in this public ground, every year for years, probably 6-7 years in a row, I was doing that.
Wow.
And why my wife stuck around, I have no idea.
Right.
But I have no idea. Thank God she did. but anyways, I'd find myself, I was so into it that, and people were starting to pay attention to where I was, and so I try to not even be seen, right? So I got to the point where it was like, I don't want anybody to see me, So I'd catch myself putting myself in places while I was walking where I could be seen, like maybe I'd be down in a dip where I could still shed hunt this spot, but if somebody's, driving by, they're going to have a real tough time to see me, or I might go down right at the last light and hunt the edge, and shed hunt the edges of the corners of these fields or something, and, it'd be shady, and, you'd know that when you're walking and the sun's beating on you, you're just like, that you stick out. And so it was just that type of thing where I was just like trying not to be seen by people. It started to just click with me, like, that's why they don't like this. That's why they like this. That's why a buck would walk this way. And then you're walking their trails. You're like, that was smart. It's a smart spot to be walking, And you'd be looking off to your left, off to your right while you're walking these trails. And you're like, there's really no way to ambush them right here either. And so, just going with that mindset while I was shed hunting the whole time, that's where I think I learned the most. Them few years shed hunting and just looking at everything, just stop. I just stop for 20-30 minutes and just sit on the log there in some spot and just look around and just try to figure out why the heck so many deer seem to like this particular spot, And it would just kind of little things would just pop out here and there as to why.
They do.
And, and so when I would do that, then I'd figure out, okay, so if they like it because of maybe this reason, well, if I do this, then that gives me the advantage,
Right.
So just picking little things apart like that, coming up with pretty much any idea possible to get close to that spot or these spots that these deer seem to like every year, whether it be sitting on the ground inside a log or, piling up a bunch of trees while I was in there, making a homemade brush blind before season even comes around, just piling a bunch of trees around a spot and just like, I could just sit right in there, and I'm going to be hidden.
Yeah,
Anymore I hunt a lot on the ground more than I ever have nowadays, and I actually feel like I'm much more invisible on the ground than I am in the tree. It's just the filming part is what's tough, It's trying to get your stuff all set up. To film from the ground is the hardest part. If I had a full-time cameraman with me, I would not probably ever climb a tree. I would pretty much hunt from the ground.
Really?
Yeah, no doubt, man. I know there's advantages to being up high. It's just that I feel like a lot of these deer now are becoming accustomed to seeing things and being and hunters being in all these trees and people not doing it maybe to the correct way of silhouette, keeping their silhouette out, and I think these deer are starting to learn that danger's coming from above, and they don't hardly ever run into anything really close to them on the ground that is a real threat,
Right.
And so when they see you, even if they pick you out on the ground a little bit, they might just kind of look you over a little bit, give you a couple of head nods, and go to feed, and then have their head down and their eyes are up still. They try to trick you, them damn things.
Right.
And it's just a game. It turns into a game of like who can stay still the longest.
Sure.
And that's I love that game. I mean, a lot of people have that where a mature doe will come walking in on them, and they're like, it's prime time. This buck could show up at any point. And I know that. I get that. But, man, when you can stand 15 yards on the ground, 10 yards on the ground, and look a deer in the eyes and win that battle where they don't ever figure out what's going on and then they just walk off like nothing happened, that is like one of the coolest successes in the woods right there in my book. I'll say that, take that all day, because that big mature doe is not easy to fool.
No. No.
Especially when they got some fawns with them, they are on edge, man.
Yeah, I think anybody that's spent any time in the timber would agree with you.
Yeah.
Let's. I know I've taken quite a bit of your time already, so I don't want to take a ton more. But I just want to get an idea from you. Starting from here forward, assuming the waters recede. How is it that you go about figuring out where you're going to be September 1st, other than in your air-conditioned house? Or
in my air-conditioned pickup working.
Right, yeah, exactly. Avoiding mosquitoes. How do you, is it trail cameras? Man. Is it just the scouting that you did in January, February, March? How is it that you go about, first of all, identifying a spot, and then once you find a spot, I guess just take us through that thought process.
Okay, so this year, as other years, I've been through this high water stuff, several, I don't know how many times, in hunting this place. So what I'm going to end up doing, as soon as the waters start to recede, and they have to recede quite a bit because we got a lot of water. So what's cool about having this high water is it knocks down and it keeps kind of a whole bunch of these waterways. They're pretty much going to be dirt and mud for almost November, or even into November now. They just won't dry up. So what that does is give me the opportunity to walk these dried up waterways coming off the river. And as soon as deer start to walk across them things, it doesn't take long before you just get a hell of a path across that thing. It'll just be a beat down. And what I love about that is because I can walk along there and find a big buck track, and so that's basically what I'll do starting out with. I'll get all my cameras and stuff together. I use cameras, but anymore I just want to find the big track. If I can find some big tracks in an area and I can see which direction they're going on this trail, or because there usually is going to be several trails for a few hundred yards. Well, there's a lot of times I've noticed where a buck comes out on this end of maybe this dried up waterway, and you'll see all of his tracks heading towards the fields. And you'll go down and you can see most of his tracks coming 150 yards away down that waterway going back in. You might see some on one trail going back in on that one side, but you'll see that there's a whole bunch of buck tracks because, when they're hanging out with, their bachelor groups, you'll just see that, all right, this is a bucky area because it's got a lot of buck tracks and very limited doe tracks. And I'll generally stay away from the heavy beat-down trails because I've just never had a lot of luck on those. I'll have a lot of deer, come by, but the big bucks are generally traveling areas that just have a few tracks here and there crossing, and it's never really in the same spot. It might be like a 30-yard wide area that just these bucks just cross this one section sometimes. So I'm going to be going up and down the river on my boat, checking a whole bunch of those things out, walking up and down them, trying not to get attacked by hornets because every damn year. It seems like I get attacked by hornets now, and it's not fun. So they're definitely not a fan of them at this point. And so I'll run up and down those things pretty much and check for a bunch of trails. And from there, I'll put a few cameras out, and I'll try to lock down a good deer, and in several areas. Probably it's going to be anywhere from 5 to 10 different areas. I'll have spots like that all kind of set up for cameras, and I might even do some early season glassing. If I can find some areas that I can see a really good stretch of the timber. And so with all this water, it's going to keep a lot of the new growth grass away for quite a while. So it might take a while to get a bunch of that stuff grown up, so it opens up everything really good, so you can see a lot of deer, in particular areas where there's generally 5 to 6 foot grass, So,
yep.
So I do a lot of driving around, doing some glassing early mornings. Mainly, I like mornings better than evenings because I just seem to have better luck with that now because there's less people in the morning,
Okay.
So less people looking for them in the morning. Most people are looking in the evenings. They get off work and like, oh, come on. They take their girlfriend for a cruise and they, turn up the music and they're looking for deer for the evening. Well, there's a whole bunch of people that do that. So I just almost don't hardly drive around in the evening anymore. I just get up at, 5 in the morning and go to where I want to be and try to just hang out in my pickup and glass the edges of those fields, those shady spots of the fields in the early morning where they're making their way back to the field, the field edge, and maybe get one glimpse. That's all I want is a glimpse. I don't even care what the hell. As long as I see it as a mature deer, I'm happy. I don't even care what the hell it is. If I see it as a mature deer, now I know. All right, there's another one. He's gonna be living right there. So I'll just try to find a good handful of those and try to figure them out, man.
So you're a lot like everybody else that not you're a lot like everybody else that I talk. That's probably the wrong way to say it. But you're similar to other guys, and it's sort of surprising to me. I don't know why it's surprising to me, but everyone's talking about relying on, a track. And, and I'm always looking at that track going, well, it probably was just really muddy. And it probably
he might have been on a little trot.
It's just wet. And but then,
right.
I guess that coupled with a rub that's at my hip level or armpit or whatever, I guess all of those things together suggest that there's probably a big deer in the area. I was just surprised to hear how much stock, and Aaron Warburton, from the hunting public, how much stock he puts into finding that track versus getting a deer on trail camera. Zach Fehrenbach, conversely, also from the hunting public, doesn't even like using trail cameras.
Yeah, a lot of times they can be just as much a problem as they can help you. And I've seen that before too, where, you get a bunch of these cameras put up, and what it does is it makes you want to go back there, and that could be the biggest problem. So this whole last year, I used them only through basically end of July up to early September, and then I didn't even put the things back out again.
Really?
And yeah, because I just found I'm finding more and more too. Just like was it Zach?
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
It's like Zach was saying, is that if he doesn't use them, I'm sure he has a particular reason why. I didn't listen to that one or anything yet, but I'm sure it has to do with leaving more scent in there, the deer seeing that camera or feeling, sensing that you're there. And then, a lot of these deer in public land, if you give them one hint, that's all it takes. One hint of something's wrong, something's out of place, that's all it takes. And them deer can change completely, just that one little switch, and them things are nocturnal or they've moved off this way. But nocturnal is the thing that I've noticed that happens. And I've done that. I've seen that happen. My dad has gotten after me back when I was younger and trail cameras first come out, and that's where I learned that I was screwing up, and my dad would just put that in my ear like, yeah, you're going in there too much, them deer are not stupid.
Right.
Every time you go in there, I'm spraying down and everything, Dad, and trying to be the smart ass, and yeah, it doesn't matter. You can't fool that deer when it comes to that scent and stuff. You're walking in there. Once you walk in there, you better be satisfied with those deer knowing you were there. Whereas in July, August, I'm fine with it because that doesn't seem to bother anything, you know.
No, but
and then just once I find them tracks, man, the track doesn't lie. You know, it does not lie. If the track is there, he is there, or multiple bucks are there. That's a fact. You know.
Right. You know, one of the things that's helped me to avoid getting in that rut of going in and checking those cameras often is we've recently changed over our partner with respect to trail cameras to Spartan camera, and with their cellular cameras, that's been, well, number one, it's awesome for me because the land that I hunt now is an hour and a half away. So I can sit here while we're doing the podcast and see what's going on.
Right.
If I want to, but not everybody has access to that. So I can see where you and Zach could feel the way that you do. Because there's definitely value in leaving those deer alone. I guess once you know that they're there and you have a pretty good idea that they're going to stay there, I guess then it's time to start figuring out how you're going to kill them, not how many pictures you can get of them.
Right, but to speak to that token too, it all depends on what you want as a person. Is that something you truly enjoy, putting out them cameras, hanging them cameras, doing the whole thing? Maybe you got your kids in the boat. Maybe you're you got kids with you and you're doing that type of thing. If that's just something you love to do, don't stop doing it. That doesn't make any sense.
That's a great point.
But if you want to kill these deer, then you may want to think about how you're using your cameras. If you truly want to make the best attempt at it, you might want to just put the cameras away. That's a thought. It's definitely not something you have to do, because how many people a year get pictures of their deer and then they just smack them? It happens all the time too.
Yeah, absolutely. But I guess you bring up a great point, and it's, I think, something that none of us do often enough, and that's I guess decide what it is that we really want before we go out and do it.
Right.
If your goal is to shoot a mature deer, then you certainly have to do things a little bit different. And that doesn't need to be everybody's goal. It doesn't need to be. There's so much fun to be had in so many other facets of our sport. It doesn't have to be a mature deer, and that's one of the things that I think Lee Lukoski brought up way back in the late winter here, early spring, when we did a show with him. He was like, do your thing and just make sure you're having fun, because a 3-year-old on your property might be a 6-year-old on my property. It's just
exactly,
you just gotta do it for you, and I think when you start doing that, you have more fun. B, you have more fun, and C, that's success, I think.
I think that's the success everybody should be looking for.
Exactly.
Is the fact that you went out there, you've enjoyed it, you had fun, you maybe shared some memories with some friends and family, and you got out of there safely and everything worked out. That's what we should all really be after, And the older I get, I'll be 30 in December.
Oh God!
I'm not old by any means, but just the older I'm getting, I'll tell you what. If you compared 30-year-old Lucas to 20-year-old Lucas, you'd be like, no way, no. That does not happen in 10 years. Like that change doesn't happen. And that's just because all my priorities have changed.
Sure.
Everything changes all the time. With kids and a family and a house. You got the yard to do. You got all these things. And you just the yard thing is that thing's growing on me. I used to hate doing yard stuff. Now I'm liking it. Now I like doing this garden, and I like doing this. I like to, and that was that almost speaks to as far as how much I hunt a year anymore. Well, I don't hunt probably a half as much as I used to, in the past years. Every year it almost dwindles off a little bit more even. My kids are at that age where I don't want to miss anything, I'm the type of guy that gets to thinking that they won't be here forever, and then if I'm gone hunting all the time or something and I'm going to miss all these things, I'll never forgive myself. I'll never forgive myself for that. So anymore, if I don't have the absolute perfect conditions, and I don't actually think I have a great chance of killing a deer, I'm not even going. I used to just go because I had the chance to go. Now it's, all right, is it worth going or is it not worth going? As far as my attempt to take an animal.
Right.
But I also know when I need a break also. I also know and I just need to be in the woods. All right, just go, sit, think, do whatever it is. Not
Sure.
see a deer, doesn't matter.
Sure.
We all know, I think, those times that we need to. So it's just a big balance, and if I had any advice to the younger guys, is just don't ever say, I'll never be this guy, I'll never be that guy, because you'd be surprised. You start having some kids and stuff, things change, and it's not a bad change. It's just something that happens,
Right.
That's one thing that just, I kind of shocked myself over the years of like how it's all developed, But I love it, I love it all, It's all perfect for me.
No, I completely get it. David and I don't think for 4, 5, 6, whatever years, I don't think we hunted without each other. Well, he's got kids in school, and he's a football referee, and he's a basketball coach, and a baseball coach, and a this and a that, and we're just in different seasons of our life, and that's perfectly fine. There'll be a time, I'm past that point. My son, and he'll be probably in the Marines this time next year.
Oh wow!
But yeah, that's exciting. But it's just everybody is at different stages, and I hunted more the last year than I probably ever have. But I had a desire to do it more because I guess I really wanted to tackle this public land thing and win, and ultimately I did. I don't know whether I did it with a whole lot of grace or not, but I got it done. But when I was done, I was really done. I'm like, I'm done.
So you're never doing it again, or what?
No. I mean, just last year, I
okay.
I mean, I hammered it at every chance that I got, and once I got the deer, and drug it 2 miles, and just got it all done, I was done. I went rifle hunting for about 45 minutes, and I said to my boys, I'm like, hey, I'm going home. And they said, what? And I said, I'm going home. And they said, okay.
Oh gosh.
And I regret that a little bit because my son Jackson was able to shoot a buck, a nice 8-point, and I wasn't there for that. But on the other hand, he was glad to an extent that I wasn't there because he got to do it himself. And I think, man, for a guy like you with kids growing up, if there's one piece of advice I could give you, and we're getting way off track, but that's all right. There's value here.
Yeah.
It's that don't ever get to the point where you're packing your kid's backpack and you're, getting their camouflage set out and their boots out and making sure that they've got everything. I made that mistake and, gave him a high-powered rifle and put him in a big box blind, and he went out and shot a 130-inch 10-pointer his first time out. I think I ruined a lot of what I enjoyed as a kid, and I think it's going to hurt the future generations for hunting. But that's probably a whole nother podcast. But anyway,
definitely
what's on the horizon for you? You mentioned getting all this stuff put together. Anything we need to know about coming down the pipe for you?
Yeah, I'm working on right now, getting something put together, and I'm going to try to start streaming all my shows and my episodes and all that stuff online, and do something pretty simple. It's definitely not going to be very highly edited and changed, and not going to be a massive amount of hours put on the computer to edit everything and do it. It's going to be a lot of raw, I'll throw some voiceovers in just to get everybody on track with things, and I'm going to start doing that stuff, and hopefully I'll have something going by end of the summer, fall. And I got a lot of footage to share over the last couple of years here, and some damn good hunts and some hilarious shit along the way. So it's just it just comes down to that family thing. It's just been with family and work, and it's just gosh, but I just know that in my heart I got to get this stuff out, because I just know that there's a lot of people out there that would just enjoy it. I know there is. I've gotten messages, I don't know how many times, to just see if I was even alive still.
Yep.
Because I just disappeared. Everyone's like, are you still alive?
Right.
I haven't heard from you. You're not on White Knuckle. You're nowhere to be found. And like, what the hell's going on? I'm like, sorry, man. It just kind of like took some time for myself, pretty much, and kind of rebooting, And I think I'm ready to get back after it again and start sharing a bunch of this stuff, because I've still been carrying the camera because I still enjoy that and sharing all that stuff with my friends and family just here. So I got a lot of stuff, and I'm gonna be. Just everybody can just be on the lookout, and I'll be releasing something, and hopefully here soon, and any kind of an update at least.
Sure.
Of what I got going.
When we see something, we'll certainly share it on all our social media channels, etc. So. Oh,
awesome! That'd be awesome, man. I appreciate that. Yeah. Just another avenue, just another one to get after and try and get everybody off my back. But it's rightfully so, because I just disappeared out of nowhere and just stopped doing everything. So
you left us all high and dry.
I know, and it's not like I'm just some big movie star or anything like that. It's just that there's quite a few people that I just became friends with just over hunting and everything, and then they always enjoyed to see what I had going on and everything, and so it's just a few people here and there that have hounded me about it, and hound me every time they see me or talk to me or anything. And so rightfully so, though, because like in my mind I want to share it. I got to just put the time aside and get everything done.
Boom, another public land interview in the books. Thanks, Lucas Cayko, longtime fan favorite and longtime team member of White Knuckle Productions. We appreciate every time you come on the show, and every time you've come on the show, it's been nothing but a success. So we wish you the best of luck in the future, and definitely be watching out on social media for whatever it is Lucas has up his sleeve coming your way. I'm guessing sometime in the next 12 months. That's not a promise. Just keep an eye on what Lucas is doing. For those of you who forgot and may want to do it, we could always use your reviews on iTunes. If you don't listen on iTunes and you listen on Stitcher, we can use your review there. If you can give us 5 stars, that would be great. For those of you who have not been paying attention and have missed my message about Ozonics, if you haven't heard, they are now manufacturer ship direct. And what that means is we can offer you savings that they couldn't offer you before. They've given White Knuckle the ability to offer you a special deal. All you have to do is go to their website, www.ozonicshunting.com/WKP, and you'll find the deal of the month there for the White Knuckle podcast fans. I don't have a whole lot else for today. Go out and make it a great week. Jason out.